Hey, Katrina here from Scrappy Horses. Welcome to my YouTube channel. Today, I am working on a keepsake journal book. Now, the book is my own design, but these beautiful papers are from Victoria Designs. All of these papers and about 98% of the ephemera you're going to see are from the Pumpkin Patch Journaling Kit. This kit comes with approximately 14 pages of just beautiful artwork, 2 full papers, and 3 pages of embellishments. And I'm going to give you sort of a little tour of all of that here in just a minute. So grab a cup of coffee or tea or some hot apple cider and join me in this fall keepsake book. As many of my projects start, I kind of designed this in Cricut Design Space, and you can see all of the different pieces and pages. On the left-hand upper side, underneath my Scrappy Horses logo, that's the actual book, the brown pieces, and then everything else are just pages that I've put together to go inside this keepsake book. This is more than just a journal sort of book because it has a little place to put things and keep things. And so let's get started and I'll show you how that works. These are some of the gorgeous papers from the book, and I've sort of put together a front page with a title, A Colorful Season. That's my back page of it, and that's the other side of the back page that will be on the inside of the book. These are the pieces that I will put on the flap that folds over. These are some little pieces for my spine of my book. And then underneath you can see lots of little words, and all of this comes with the journaling kit. Here are some little pieces that I've cut. Now, everything you see that is plain, those are just my own pieces of scrap paper, but everything else is from the kit. Okay, so once I got everything cut in Design Space and sized the way I liked it, I went ahead and used some different shapes, put them together to make some different pieces to put in the book. And these are some of the different pieces that I put together. These are the gorgeous pages that I told you about. I printed them double-sided, and as you can see, there are 2 pages per sheet, so I can fold them over. Now, I sort of went shopping in my own craft room and just pulled out odds and ends from other projects as well as some different things that I had. And talk about odds and ends, here are a bunch of just little itty bitty pieces of scrap ribbon and such that I thought might be fun in this project. This piece that you're looking at right now, and I'm going to go ahead and put those creases in just a little heavier than what my Cricut machine put them in. These were flaps that are going to go inside the book to hold ephemera. Now, you're going to notice that this is a pretty hefty flap here. It's pretty thick. The dimension on it is pretty thick. And that gets changed later on. And I put it on there and went to score it, and I thought, no, I'm going to wait. I'm going to wait and put it in the book and see exactly where I want that score line to be. So later on, you'll see me do that. Here's a little folder I cut, just a little folder shape that I cut out of some of the paper in Design Space. Thought it would be fun in there. And this is a little one that I put together. Again, I used papers and cut this little folder. Again, all of these shapes you're seeing right now, I did in Design Space. So shapes don't come with your kit. These are things that I just used the papers and then sort of designed these different pieces of ephemera. So a little envelope, and it didn't quite fold the way I wanted it to, so I'm just sort of scooching it over a little bit and putting that line back in and burnishing that with my bone folder. All right. What I'm doing here is I'm actually starting to lay out the book. And you need to go back, and there's a video before this that shows you how to actually put the book foundation together. Once I get my book foundation put together, then I start laying it out. And you'll see there the little pieces where I wrote magnet closure. That is there because I need to get those magnets in before I glue down any of these pieces of paper. And if I forget, then it's going to be too late. So I always just keep a little sticky note there to remind myself, hey, don't be laying that down until you put your magnets in. Okay, I'm laying this masking tape down on my arm here to kind of take some of the sticky off. And I'm going to just put all of the pieces in my book with masking tape first. This is nothing but sort of place marking. That way nothing's in here permanently. I can take a look at it. I can think about, okay, do I like this? Do I like the way this is laying out? And I can change things very easily. I've already machine stitched in some just sort of ornamental stitching on the pockets and my front and on that page. And so what I'm doing is I'm just tying off the threads. That way it won't unravel. So again, just tying off threads, getting them so that they're not going to unravel. They're not going to come undone. Now, I like hanging threads. For me, that messy, rustic look works. For some people, it doesn't, and I get that. My husband and son are both sort of like, you forgot to clip the threads. It's like, I didn't forget. I'm not going to clip the threads. I like the threads. So I know some people don't like them. So, when you're doing your book, clip your threads if you don't like them. Add more if you do. All right. It's your book. You can do what you want, right? Okay. There are the little pieces that go in the spines. And now I'm coming to the front cover. I've done some stitching around. And again, I'm going to tie those off. I'm sort of thinking about those magnets, and I'm thinking I'm not quite sure I'm ready to think about those magnets yet. So instead, I'm just going to start tying off my threads because I know that has to be done. And what I will do is tie them off, and on the back, I will put a little bit of masking tape where that stitching meets, and then I'll just cut those tails off. I don't necessarily need those strings hanging down from behind, so I'll just clip those, and nothing is going to come undone here once I've tied these off. And then once I've taped them on the back, keep in mind that not only am I taping them on the back, but then there's going to be a layer of tape around the edges and then lots and lots of fabric tack over it. So I feel pretty certain that those threads are going to be safe. Now again, I'm going to use a little bit of that masking tape, and I'm just going to place it in. So I lost one of my magnet Post-it notes, so I'm putting another one in. Just again, because sometimes I get carried away when I'm crafting and my brain is going a million miles an hour. And I'll admit, I also listen to music while I craft. And sometimes my brain goes somewhere else and I skip an important step. And the magnet step was one I just did not want to miss. I also left out quite a bit of the inking on this particular video. This video is really long, so I left out a lot of the inking. Here's an idea for you. If you have lots and lots of white cardstock left over, little pieces, and you don't necessarily have a nice dark brown one, here's a way to get a nice dark brown backing piece. I just used a pip pen and went around that, And now nobody, except for you and I, are any the wiser that I didn't just use brown cardstock under there. So I do that quite often, actually. Or if I'm Copic coloring something and I want a perfect match, I can do that. I can Copic color and get that match. Okay, so if you watch many of my videos, you know that everything I put together, maybe not everything, but most of what I put together is put together with double score tape and fabric tack. Now, the double score tape would probably hold everything by itself. However, if I get something glued down with just the double score tape and I don't like where it is, that's just too bad. I'm stuck with it. If I'm using the fabric tack with it, I have room that I can sort of slide a little bit to the right or left or up or down. Or if it's just a total problem, I can just peel it right off. But once it dries, then we're stuck. So, but it gives me that moment in time where I can just square things up and make it just the way I want it. So here you see me laying down that score tape and then putting the fabric tack over and then rubbing that into place. So here we are again, and you'll notice that I'm putting that score tape right over that stitching. Again, it's going to hold that stitching right in place. And now I'm going to put a little pocket in here. Now this little pocket comes with the kit. I didn't have to design that, so that was an easy make. I'm going to go ahead, while I'm working on this, I'm going to go ahead and put my back page in. Again, same thing. I went ahead and inked around the edges, and then I went ahead and put in my double score tape and fabric tack. I really love this back page with that little bundle of wood there and the old straw hat with the brown band. There are just so many pieces of this paper that I just love. I love this piece with the music and then the little blue pumpkin here on the corner. I wanted to bring out that blue, and so I had this blue burlap and thought this would be perfect. So I'm just going to use a little fabric tack. I'm going to place that in and just cut off the excess there and then just glue it right into my book. Again, I could use score tape on this, but I think I chose just to go with fabric tack on this. I doubt that it's going to be holding anything that's so heavy that the fabric tack alone won't suffice. So I think we're good. I had this little fabric brown rose, and I thought, how perfect would that be in this book? It's fun sometimes just to shop my own stash and see what I have. And I'll talk more about that later. But we're getting into the magnets now. So I have a couple of washers that I've laid approximately where they're going to go on the front cover. And then I have the actual magnets over on the flap. What I'm doing is I'm positioning these washers approximately where I want them. Again, I'm just bringing in masking tape and I'm just taping them down. I'm trying to get them approximately even from top to bottom. And then this is how you're going to place your actual magnets. Washers are underneath there. I've got the paper on top. Now I just lay those washers down on top of the magnets. Now I go in and with a pencil, I'm marking the approximate middle of where those washers are. And now I just move them over. Okay, that's all there was to it. So now I'm checking to make sure that my placement is correct. I like it. So now I can go ahead and put the paper over the top. I would recommend going ahead and just making sure that the magnet and washers still hold through your paper. I did not use extremely heavy cardstock here This is more of it's heavier than copy paper, but it's not like 100-pound paper or anything like that. So it held beautifully. It worked out just fine. Now you're going to see me place some clamps here because I want to make sure that because I have those washers over there, I have them just a little close to the edge. I want to make sure that the paper doesn't lift up. So in a minute, you're going to see that I have put clamps on that, and I will set that aside with the clamps on it, and that will just guarantee that it's going to stay down. Here, I'm just making sure that I have my front cover paper exactly where I want it. Now, the flap on the outside, I'm taking and I'm using my pokey tool, which is really called a piercing tool, and I've pierced some holes in this border, and I'm putting in these really big brads. They're, I'm not sure the size of them, but I'll list it below. They're big. They're really fun. I like them. They were a recent purchase because they were on sale, and I thought I really like those. I want those for books. So I know that there's the rule of threes, but you'll see why I didn't put 3 on here a little later down the road here. I'm covering it with my double score tape just to keep those placed where they need to be. And I laid it down, not thinking, oh, I haven't glued the other flap down yet. It was not a big deal. I just picked it up, added my double score tape and my fabric tack, and then I'll just glue the whole thing into place. So I'm just kind of holding it gingerly here just to be sure that I don't move anything from where I had laid it. It all worked out fine though. You'll see here in just a minute when I lay it down, it's fine. And there it is. Worked out great. There are those clamps I talked about, and you can see I've got them right there on the edge. So now we have the front and the back finished. We're ready to go now. I'm going to set that aside to dry, and I'm going to start working on these pages. All I'm going to do to these pages for now is just rip around the 4 sides. That's going to give them a very distressed look, and I'm not going to make you watch me do that because that would be pretty boring. All right, time has passed, and now I'm coming in and I'm going to start thinking about how I want to put those flaps into the book to make this work. Now, if you look carefully, you can see that I have added a score line on those flaps and added an extra score line, and we'll talk about that in just a minute. But first, let's talk about decorating this. I was trying to decide how I wanted this closure to work, and I knew I wanted to use these really cute pieces from the ephemera from the journaling kit. So I've added one of these little strips, and I'm adding the little pumpkin peas, and I'm going to glue that all together just to make some pretty decor on the top flap, and then there'll be a bottom flap that you'll see here in just a minute. Now, there you can see that score line that I've added. And you're going to see that score line close up, and I'm going to do a freeze frame on it here in a little bit. So if you didn't catch that, it's okay. We've got another chance to see it. I'm going to go ahead and add my glue, fabric tack, and a little bit of score tape and put that on. Now what I'm doing here is I'm cutting a shank off of a button, and I covered it because I didn't want it to flip up and hit the camera. So that's why I had my hand over it. I couldn't get those little itty bitty pieces off, so I got the sandpaper out and I started sanding. I still couldn't get it flat enough for my liking. So what I did next is I just cut a little piece of it and just used my finger, wrapped it around my finger, and then I got in there and got those off so they were nice and flat. So now this is the way this button is going to fall over. Now, again, this piece was just in my stash, this little leaf button. Everybody knows I craft. And so whenever people are at garage sales and they see like big bags of buttons or jewelry or button covers, whatever, they tend to buy them for me, which is so nice. So I have lots of goodies, you know, for not very much money. All right, so you saw that little Post-it note and it said string. That's because I wanted to remember to add string there because that's how I'm going to close it. I want to pop this little truck up just slightly. So I've got some cereal box here. And if you go back and you watch the video on how I actually made the foundation for the book, that was all made out of cereal box too. So I guess a prerequisite for making these books is to eat a lot of cereal, which is no problem for me. I love cereal. All right, so here I'm putting on the string. I've got it glued in. I have masking tape on it. I added double score tape to it. And then I'm going to go ahead and add more glue over the top and glue it all down, leaving room for that string to come up because this is the bottom. Okay, so it fits underneath and it's also at the bottom of the book. Does that make sense? So anyway, I've got Gorilla Glue here and I've added a little piece and here's the freeze frame. Okay, see the line there in the middle? That's the new score line. And I'm going to put that score tape right next to it. I'm going to do the same thing on my top flap. So now when I glue this into place, it will give me about 1/4 of an inch in depth because 1/2 an inch was just way too much, way too much. So here we are. We've got the book and I'm going to lay it in there, another freeze frame, so you can see that I have left that one little part unglued so that it gives me that depth. I will do the very same thing with my top. So I'm going to go ahead and leave that one little 1/4 strip there. Coming in with my little button. I'm going to lay it here right in the middle. And then I'm going to let that dry and we're going to move on to some pockets. These all come with the kit. I did not have to design these. All I had to do was cut them and put in the fold lines and fold them. Now I'm just folding all the pages. And again, that's pretty simple. You just go in and fold it. But as I was folding, I was looking for the plainer pages where I might want to add pockets or different pieces of ephemera. So as I was folding, I was making those decisions. This piece I cut down quite a bit more than what I had actually thought I would. I'm going to go ahead and put some lines in this so that it will fold, and we'll see that again later. We'll come back to that. Right now we're going to go ahead and add a pocket, and I'm just adding a little itty bitty border to the side of this pocket. I'll cut it down just like I did that blue burlap. Go ahead and add a little bit of glue there and put it right into place, and just add a little itty bitty embroidery floss bow to the basket. I thought that would be kind of fun. I love fall. I love fall colors. I love fall themed papers, and I love burlap. And so this project was just right up my alley. I really enjoyed doing it. I'm hoping to put some pictures of some pumpkin patch visits with my little grandgirl and some other things in this book. All right, I'm coming in with a little eyelet, and I chose white so it would kind of pop off that blue. And I'm coming in with some of the blue that I had cut before when I put it on the pocket. And now I'm just adding a little bit of brown ribbon. Just kind of tie another little bow on the front of that. I'm going to glue this piece in to actually make another pocket. So I'm only putting glue around the left side and the bottom. Okay, we're coming back to this page now. And I've got this cut, and I have the little folds in. And you will notice that when I did this, I shifted and I got it off kilter. So it's not smack dab in the middle. But I decided that that was okay. These eyelets are really big. They're from We Are Memory Keepers. I have those in my stash too. I really like them. I use them on a lot of my books. And see, it's not equal, it's not even, but I'm not going to let that bother me. And in fact, it inspired me to tie this off to the right instead of putting it in the middle, which I ended up really liking. So, sometimes, yeah, you do something you don't really love, but then when you go to make it look appropriate or right or whatever word we want to use there, it inspires us to do something that we love. So I decided I'd get these letters. These letters, I think I got it like Big Lots, like 5 years ago or more than 5 years ago, probably 10 years ago. And I've never used them. And I thought, the color is what drew me to it. Everybody in my family has K names. So I thought, no matter whose picture goes on here, we're pretty safe having a K on there. So I went ahead and put a K there. Again, a little bit of double score tape and a little bit of glue, and we'll just put this right into place. And this creates sort of a little band on the page, and I can slip things behind the green, or I can slip them between the green and the actual piece of designer paper, or I could even slip it right in behind the ribbon, I could have 3 different layers of things sitting in there. Just put a little drop of glue to hold the ribbon in place. Now this little piece came with it, and I thought, I want this piece of stitched ribbon that I had actually made for another project and never used it. I threw it in my stash, and I decided, what, I'm going to get that out and use it again because I liked the color and the little diagonal stripe on it. And I thought I can just put that little piece of ephemera that came with the kit right on top of that little pumpkin that was there. Just a little something there to add a little something to the page. Again, I have my piercing tool out. I'm going to pierce a couple of holes. And I'm going to create another pocket. I'm bringing in some teeny tiny little brads. They were from Joann's. I've had those in my stash for a long time. I'm bending those brads around so that they do not stick off, because there was no place really to put them where the little arms weren't going to stick across. So you can see right there that I bent them into sort of an L shape. Now I'm cutting a little strip of masking tape to tape across the top. Now I'm doing this because I've learned that when you put eyelets or something in like that, and then you try to slide things down in your pocket, they can get hung up on that. So that is why I put that across there. That way when I slide things in, I should not have any problems with it getting caught on the eyelet. Or not on the eyelet, I'm sorry, on the arms of the brad. I hope I explained that well. All right, so I have taped that in, put a little glue in, and now I've decided, this page is pretty brown. I want to add some more blue and bring out some of the blues. So I'm right now going in with just some heavy thread and going around the brad just to add a little something there to look at. I've got some blue gems that were left over from my daughter's wedding. She's been married I think 8 or 9 years, and I'm still using these little blue jewels from her wedding. Now, I decided that I didn't want to use that bow. It was just a little bit thick. So I went ahead and took that out, just removed it, and added instead some lace and a little bit of brown ribbon. And you can see here that I've got my little jewels in place, and here I am putting in that brown ribbon I told you about. I'm just going to use a little fabric tack. And then I found some flowers, and I thought this orange would be really pretty. And then I found some orange embroidery floss that matched the flower. So I went ahead and put that through the brown button. I have a lot of buttons, so finding a button wasn't too difficult. And that finished up that page. This little folder, I decided I wanted this to stick off the edge. And again, I'm just using some scrap pieces of paper. I'm going to go ahead and glue this on. I left a little bit of a pocket to the side, and I left a pocket on the top. Now this brown piece was from where I cut something else, and so I thought, well, I'll just use that to back that September, and that way it'll pop off the page a little bit. Putting a little cereal box back there, again, just to give it a little dimension. Glue that in, and I'll just add that little flower to the front of this little folder. It just looks like a little file folder. And I just made that little file folder using some of the paper that you saw in the book. I just expanded it and made it larger. Gonna add a little ribbon here, added a little piece to the other side too. Again, I have the piercing tool out. If you watch many of my videos, you know that I use my piercing tool for everything. I use it to poke things in, and I'm always talking about that. You know, that it's the pokey tool because, you know, I use it for so much more than piercing. There I used washi tape to cover up the arms of a brad that I had on the other side. That little floral piece that was in there, again, just something from a project that I had done before that I just didn't use. And I tucked away, and I thought, now's the time to use it. This piece is actually from the kit, and I'm getting some of those little words out. Lovely outside. Okay, so here now I have a little tag that I've backed with some brown. Again, creating a little pocket on the side of that. Have this little piece of sort of a twill ribbon, perfect for fall. And this time coming in with dark brown embroidery floss on a button that was in my stash. Use a little E6000 for that. Sometimes I use E6000, sometimes Gorilla Glue. It depends on how well I think it's going to hold. All right, time to go to the front now. I am using Gorilla Glue for this because this is, in a minute, I'm going to be putting that little gold flower in. And that little gold flower is pretty heavy. And I thought, you know what, I'm just going to use Gorilla Glue. And since I've got the Gorilla Glue, I'll go ahead and put my gems on with that. This little gold flower was actually from, remember back in the 80s when button covers were all the rage? Well, this was a button cover. And in fact, you can see the little piece, the shank that I took it off up there by the bow. And I thought it would just be so pretty in there. So I went ahead and took it off the shank and used it. Here comes some more of those blue gems. And I'm putting that on with some mixed media glue. And now the big ribbon, big bow. And this is why I only put 2 brads on the front, because I didn't want to waste them, and I knew it was going to get covered up anyway. So I just only put 2 brads there and then went with the bow. Okay, here's how I'm going to put my pages into the book. I am using a really heavy-duty thread. This thread just happens to be thread that I use to make oboe reeds, because in my real life I was an oboe player and not a crafter. My crafting life and my horse life are kind of like my pretend lives, you know? But I really was an oboe player. And so I made a lot of oboe reeds, and I have a lot of this thread. I realize that the majority of you out there probably don't make oboe reeds, so you don't have this. But the kind of thread that you might sew buttons on with, you know, they make a really heavy duty thread to sew buttons. Or if you make rugs, that thread is pretty heavy duty. And I loop it around the book a couple of times, and then I tie a knot, a really nice knot, and I join it so that I get a place in the middle where the two strings come together. And you'll see this here when I separate this out. And that way I have two nice separated parallel strings inside the book. And that will hold my two different sets of pages, my two different systems of pages. Now these, there are many things you could do with them. You could just, you know, tie a bow on the back of there. You can do with that whatever you want. I like to just add little beads and things to it. And so whenever, you know, I'm at the craft store and see jewelry makings, you know, I might pick up something. Or I'll be honest, most of these beads, again, came from my sister had a necklace, a big beaded necklace that had broken. And many of the beads that I have here are from that. And she was just going to throw it away. And I said, oh, don't throw it away. I'll use them. I'll use those beads. So that's how I have all those beads that I use on books. So I added another string then to that and added a few more beads. In fact, there's that bag of beads that I told you about right there on the lower left-hand side of the screen. There's that necklace. So I'm just adding some more of those. And you can just tie on as few or as many as you like. We're back to the inside of the book now, and here's how easy it is then to insert your pages. This is a fun way to do this because you can add more pages, you can take pages away, you can do whatever you want to do without getting into too much trouble. Okay, so you know, I did one for my dog like this, and I go ahead and put a lot of my vet papers in that way. All right, so back to this. Here are all the goodies that we made for the inside, and you can see that we just fold them up in here and close it off. And you can see that I actually could pull it down quite a bit. So there's room for a lot more, many more goodies in there. And you can see we still have some words left over and some strips left over, and there were some papers left over, so I still have lots of goodies I can use as I continue to decorate the pages with pictures and ephemera. Hey, I am so happy you joined me and you stayed with me this long through the video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope I've inspired you to give a book like this a try. I'm going to leave you all the information below. And if you will leave me questions or comments, I will get back to you. Thank you again so much for watching. Have a great day. Bye.